Hi traders, and welcome to my video for preparation for the week. And this is the Dow on the daily. You can see we've got a huge trend line coming in off the lows, which has picked up the 50% fib move in the Dow, and we closed at 16,340 area. One thing to note on the intraday charts, the 1 hour charts, is that this is the fibs on last week's move. We're going to move through the 127 extension was resistance into the Friday open. We pushed up into the 161, and then we had this sell-off from 6:30 into half an hour into the close. We had to sell off right back to last week's highs at 16,230 before we bounced and closed up there at 340. So the political uncertainty in Ukraine is definitely in the background of this market, but on the daily chart that's a significant close. So I would look for a retest of the actual Friday open. A bit of a topping tail on there. We have got a lot of resistance under there from the drop on the 23rd of Jan. So I'm going to trade. I'm not going to trade on Monday, basically. I'm just going to leave Monday alone, let the market sort itself out, and if we drift lower to the 200, 230 levels and hold, then obviously I'll start buying again. RSI is high. We're above the fib zone, 16,300 fib zone. Trend line coming across the top. Trend line underneath. So at this key level here, the 170 level I was looking at last week, held. A couple of dips underneath it, but they were bought, and then we had Thursday and Friday had really good closes. So overall there is a good bullish tone to the market. So if we see any softening of the Ukraine situation, that will encourage markets to push through possibly to the highs and beyond. So all the time that this market is bullish like this, then I will just buy dips. Whereas last week I was looking at this resistance level and I took a couple of shorts even, and obviously didn't do well on most situations like that. So I have to stay true to the trend, and that is firmly to the upside. These lows are just getting bought, and then this level here has broken out. Okay, let's have a look at a couple of other indices. The one thing that I am watching very, very carefully is the Nikkei. This is Nikkei on the daily. This has had a big drop, retrace, couldn't even test the 50% at the moment. So if this closes on this fib level, I will change my sentiment and start to think about the US market as a potential rollover. So for everything to stay in place, we must get a higher close on that Nikkei above that 15k mark. And that, if you relate that chart to what's happening with pound yen, you'll see why the pound yen is stuck in such a range. There's a 300 point range. It's a big box. So we've had a couple of excursions out of this box and a couple of excursions under the box. As you can see, this pattern here is a head and shoulder at the moment, and all we keep doing is testing the trend line for the neckline of the head and shoulder. But all the time we're sideways like this, then it could go either way. We're sitting right above the daily 8. Let's have a look at the weekly. The weekly is very flat, as you can see from the daily chart, and so all the time we've got all this selling over to the left. 3 higher closes in the last few weeks, with the exception of the very last week. High RSI. So you can see it could go either way. The monthly is bullish. The monthly is a higher close. We tested the 8 at the lows of the monthly, and we've closed higher. So again, not going to do anything on Monday, and looking for that to resolve itself. Pound US, however, had a really nice close. That came down to the all the daily 820s are holding down here. Hammerlight bar on Thursday, higher close on Friday. So that is a good entry if we see a retest of that hammer at just under the 167 mark. A lot of resistance up here, but like I said, all the time we close higher. Just keep buying pullbacks. The 50 MA is creeping up. The 200 is bending up. Any chart that's this far away from the daily 50 can be regarded as extended. Hence the RSI is high. But for the moment, I would still buy pullbacks. Pound Aussie dollar was probably one of the best forex charts last week. That came down on Tuesday to the daily 50 and held. That's a buy at 186.40 if you see it, for a retest of those highs. Euro. This is a buy at 137.50. That's probably, I have to say, that's probably a bit better than the pound US because of that. Now the euro yen is better than the pound yen, and the Swissy yen, in actual fact, is one of the best yen pairs out there. US dollar yen is dropping and looks lower, which is a concern. I mean, I think the markets all the time. This one is weak, and this could be an indication that the markets the indices are not sustainable at the current levels. If this gives way, then that could mean the markets are not sustainable. Right. Any other charts? Aussie US is just grinding lower, sitting on a fib level. I will be interested to see what happens at 50%, because that's a key pivot. In fact, I'm going to put an alarm on that 50%. On the Aussie US, but the Euro Aussie, ooh, that's even stronger. I have to say that's better than the pound Aussie. Huge move on Friday. So the Euro US and the Euro Aussie is currently the better charts. FTSE, that's a little bit of a hangman there, so I would expect some downdraft to 67.50, 60 area. Yeah, 67.55 is this fib area. I think we might see that tested again based on that spinning top we got there. At which point, if that closes underneath there, then that could be the end of that one. Right, other markets, commodities, gold, looks as if that needs to, got the 50 MA creeping around. I think we need to come and test 1300, 1310. If that holds, that would be a buy. Oil, a couple of stop outs on Thursday. I did take a limited trading I did do on Friday. I did do a couple of small moves to the upside to recoup my losses from Thursday. My high RSI, it's good on the weekly. Actually, that's not the weekly chart, hang on. Bit of a hangman on the weekly. Monthly's good. The monthly pullback is 160. Which is right back down here. So if we start to see these levels down here, I'll be very interested. Otherwise, I'm just staying out of that at the moment. Although with the political pressure, oil does have a tendency to run up when there's political uncertainty in the world. You'd end up buying high though if you bought that. I mean, we've had various consolidations and moves here. We've had the cluster down here before we broke out. The cluster here, one here, here, and here. So we've had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 clusters to get us up to close to 104 from 92. As I said, you know, if something's in an uptrend, just buy pullbacks, because we could go up to 106, and who knows, maybe we can get up to those highs. I mean, traditionally, so the chart that's extended from the 50 EMA needs to come and touch it before it will leg up again. That's the quick. That's why I'm suggesting you might want to wait to see if it does drop off, because the 50 EMA is down here. But if you're unsure, then steer clear. Beans with a contract changeover, which affected the markets, but the beans are currently up. This 200 EMA up here makes it tough. These gaps are because this is not the continual contract, so this is not the beans gapping around. This is just the May contract. It's not showing. It's not a continual contract. Based on that, then the $14 is a pullback still in the beans, and the corn is a buy on 450, and the wheat is showing. I think I'll have to call the continuous contracts up for you, because that's not a true reflection of what a continuous contract looks like. Otherwise, I would just steer clear of the commodity markets. Coffee's been rampant, but otherwise I would steer clear. Cocoa, sugar, steer clear. Okay, so overall stocks. Moving on to stocks. Stocks have done very well overall. This is STI, SunTrust Banks. Called this last week. So last week we were here, we pulled back, so the entry was triggered, but it took 3 days to trigger, and closed slightly higher. Potash is right underneath that trend line and the 200, so I would just leave it for now. NetApp had a big push up, very hesitant on Friday. That's sitting between the 50 and the 200. I still think that would do it, on the basis that we came down to a major level of support at 39.64. We've closed higher, we're moving sideways, but it is riskier trading between the 50 and the 200. Mon. That's had a nice hammer on Wednesday, closed nicely on Friday. That 109.50 is a good price, but being under the 50 EMA, that is riskier. Goldman Sachs getting it together. I would at least wait till Monday's out of the way. You know, this unease in the markets created by Ukraine uncertainty, I think will pay you to stay out of the markets, or at least just manage what you've got, potentially stay out. SELG, keep an eye on that one. That closes above 162.50, that could move up. CME had a good close to last week on the back of a hammer on Wednesday. So that's a pullback at 73.46. And Beazley Homes had a great week. This is what all the stocks I was looking at last week. We see 22.34 again on that. That might work. Bank of America looks as if it's getting ready for another pop-up. BBT just closing above that fib level, so BBT is looking good, and 3D Systems is weak to sideways. Right, this week I like the following. On the UK, I like Hargreaves Lansdowne. I think that's a buy at 137. I just want to show you one UK stock I've been following. I unfortunately missed the entry on, which is not much use. Fell asleep on this one, Man Group. Put a hammer in on the 20th of Feb at 82.50, and then we touched 105 on Friday. I would love a retest of that box, so I'm going to set an alarm down there. It's a bit of a big ask. In fact, I'm going to go higher. I'm going to look for a retest of that area there based on the August price. We are extended, so I'll just be patient. eShore is another one to watch. Lower high, but we've got 50 and 200 EMA cross underneath us. So let's see if we hold 270 on that one. Technologies falling out of the sky. I would sit tight. Right, other stocks I like. CNE, can't remember what CNE is, let me look. Okay. This has had a lot of selling from 275 to 190. That's a big bullish bar up there. I think Cairn is a good buy at 195 with a stop under 189. It's the UK stock, CNE. Other stocks I like are all in the US now. Go to my oil list. Valero. We're coming back down to test the breakout area at 470, so just sit tight on this one. Because if we ideally like that to come back to 470 and hold. So that's a watch. Hero, H-E-R-O. I think 473 is a buy with a stop under 463. The safe way to play it is to wait and see if we close above that trend line on HERO. XCO, that's a buy for me at 514. Diamond Offshore. I think this could get ready, but I'd want to see a close above 47.50. And CME. CME we've already talked about, sorry. CME we've talked about. Alright, one financial. I would keep an eye on Goldman's. We need to close above 167, at which point I will be a buyer of Goldman's. DRIV. Keep an eye on this one. We keep coming, bumping up against this resistance, but if we close above 180, I will be a buyer of DRIV, Digital River. Just show you that one. Just make BRCM. Broadcom. I like the look of this one if we can hold this area here. So wait and see if we get close above 300. Let's have a look at Disca. Just got that trend line above us, but there's a nice close on Friday. I think the risk order, if you wait for a safe close above 840, then the risk reward ratio is going to be limited. So I would see what you think of that. I think the risk reward ratio is going to be limited on that. CETV, this is the same sector. Oh yeah, okay, this has had a big move. You could be cheeky and look for 392. Otherwise, more realistic is 400. Otherwise, stay away. Okay, that's all I've got for you at the moment, so I will see you at the next update.